Welcome to Sober and Lit,
the podcast for women who want to get sober, stay sober, and live a life that's way more lit than it ever was with wine.
We're your hosts, Ruby and Susan, two alcohol freedom coaches keeping it real with stories, tools, and zero judgment.
Whether you're sober curious or all in, you're in the right place.
Let's feel lit, alcohol free.
Welcome back to the Sober and Lit podcast. I'm Coach Susan, and I'm here with Coach Ruby, and we have a special guest today, Lily Shanks, to talk about sober dating and sober sex. Yes, we are excited about this topic. So excited. So let me introduce you to Lily. Lily Shanks, JD, CLC, and CRC. Yeah, many titles.
I have more. We'll keep it at that.
Thank you.
Smarty pants.
Yeah. She is in recovery from alcohol and has been sober since 2018. She's a former attorney and recovering perfectionist who now helps people rebuild their lives from the inside out. Lily recently celebrated 7 years of sobriety. Woohoo! And on the outside, she was a functional attorney who had it all. And on the inside, her world was dark and stormy. It never occurred to her that alcohol was the problem until it suddenly did. And through her recovery, she discovered that alcohol was both her problem and her solution for not feeling comfortable in her own skin. And I think a lot of us can relate to that. She had to develop ways to find fulfillment and serenity beyond work, success, relationships, and alcohol. And today, Lily's a certified life coach, certified relationship coach, a certified yoga instructor, sobriety coach, and the founder of My Internal Weather at myinternalweather.com. And she works with clients who have been chasing love and self-worth in all the wrong places: work, material possessions, food, relationships, and or at the bottom of a bottle. And she helps them create more authentic, meaningful, serene lives. Sounds fabulous. She works with clients across the U.S., providing personalized self-love, recovery, and relationship coaching, plus yoga and mindfulness teaching. So welcome. You have as many certifications as I do.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Ruby. And the certifications, I guess, are proof of my different interests. And most of those certifications, the life coaching, relationship coaching, yoga, are directly a result of me experiencing yoga and feeling that transformation, that deeper connection with myself when I was really struggling back in 2010 and thinking, I would love to share this with others. It's helped me so much. And same thing with sobriety and with coaching. It is such a gift to be able to share my experience and the tools that I've learned along the way, and to be of service. And thank you for having me and for the service you all provide with this podcast.
Well, so tell us a little bit about your sobriety story. So going from an attorney to a relationship and sobriety coach and yoga instructor, that's pretty different road to take. And I would love to hear about it.
I'd be happy to share. And it's funny, Susan, I have encountered quite a few recovering attorneys or lawyers who became yoga teachers or made a jump like that. And plenty of people, of course, from the corporate world climbing the ladder who realized, oh, this isn't it for me, and made that change. And I credit that to a very slow, very painful, and very disjointed, jagged, all over the place self-journey. And that's what brought me here. And so just to back up a tiny bit, pre-law school, I never really felt comfortable in my own skin growing up. I felt like the awkward, pale redhead with the crooked teeth. And I was always seeking love. And so recovering perfectionist and always also recovering people pleaser goes along with that, because I found my validation through your praise, through your approval. and that focus on external approval, on the rewards, if you will, even on the golden handcuffs that came along with certain choices. Those were the things I looked to, the people, the objects. I see Ruby just nodding along. And I thought that was what I needed. If I got enough of that, then I would feel good about myself. And fleetingly, sometimes those things did work. I look back today and I see myself from a very young age and well into my 30s. I was 37 when I hit my rock bottom and crawled into sobriety. And I'm so grateful I did. But I'd been looking for love in all the wrong places outside of myself. And so the journey from attorney to yoga instructor wasn't that clean. I had gone to law school because it seemed like the right thing to do at the time. And everybody approved. They said, "Oh, you're going to that law school? Oh, that's going to be so great. You'll always be secure. You'll have an income. You can use the degree for anything." So lots of external approval for that. And by the way, I don't regret that decision whatsoever, because my 3 best girlfriends in the world I met in law school. And so talk about some of the loves of my life, right? We've been together more than 20 years now. That's pretty fabulous. Beautiful. And they came to Dallas to help me celebrate 7 years of sobriety. But my choices to go to law school and then to stay in my legal career for as long as I did were based on my disconnect from myself. I didn't know myself, and I didn't know what Lily, deep down in my soul, that soul truly enjoyed and appreciated. And I can tell you it wasn't practicing commercial litigation. Business lawsuits for this yoga teacher and life coach and sobriety advocate was not a good soul fit at all. And so, but I kept trying because I thought I would should myself into a lot of things. And I shoulded myself into different legal jobs because, teaching yoga didn't quite pay the bills. Although I always had enough money for wine, for alcohol. The electricity might go off because I wasn't making a whole lot teaching yoga, but I had enough for wine. And, I would drink wine, warm, cold, whatever. So if the fridge wasn't working, that's okay too, right? And true story. And so I bounced back and forth, practicing law, teaching yoga a few times a week while practicing law at a big firm, at a small firm, at a medium-sized firm. I was like Goldilocks, and I could not find that perfect fit, and finally allowed myself to accept and surrender to the very clear truth that practicing law was not for me. And so I'm really grateful I call myself a recovering attorney sometimes. Nothing against the legal industry. I know lots of fabulous lawyers. My 3 best girlfriends are all practicing lawyers still. But it just wasn't the right soul fit. And it wasn't until hitting rock bottom that I even had a really, really promising chance to get to know myself better.
Yeah. That is usually one of the silver linings from sobriety is that we start to get to know ourselves.
Such a gift.
It is a gift. Yeah.
And figure out what our passions are, or what our purpose is in this life, or what our true potential is. It just wasn't available to me until I got alcohol free. I couldn't figure that out for the life of me.
That's right. My life revolved around drinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do I have enough at home? Recovering from last night's hangover, worried about what I did last night, or what a mess.
Yeah. So 2018 though, sober 7 years. That's amazing.
It's a miracle.
Yay.
It's a miracle. I've had so much support and guidance through life, but especially through the past 7+ years now. And that rock bottom was painful. Things have been getting worse and worse. And I know we're going to talk a little more specifically about dating, but just to set things up here, I had a couple of relationships pre-sobriety that were longer term and healthy. And I had felt as though, and I did do on a lot of levels better in those relationships, meaning my tendency to engage in disordered eating, that's one of my isms, if you will, was less prominent when I was in those relationships. I still drank heavily, but I didn't get as off the wall crazy as I did when left to my own devices. And so as a people pleaser, as somebody who's seeking love from external sources, including finding the right man, where is he? I started to connect a slightly healthier version of me with being with someone, being in a relationship. And so things didn't work out with those two relationships that I'm thinking of currently. And I'm really blessed that I did date so many very nice men over the years. And a lot of them I met online and also in real life and through other real people. But I was on a quest because I thought that he could fix me. And even if he wasn't Mr. Right, he could be Mr. Right now. And sort of fill that space because it was validating. It wasn't as lonely, although I think we all know that we can feel lonely even when we're with somebody or in a relationship. And so I ended up dating and then getting involved with, for extended periods of time, men who were just not a good fit for me. Mm-hmm. Nothing necessarily against them or wrong with them, but I had been seeking so much outside of me and brushing away my intuition that would say, on the first meetup, of course we would go for a drink, right? What else do you do?
Yep.
That would say, oh, this guy isn't really, no, I'm not really liking this. I'm pretty sure he gets the same vibe and we won't go out again. And then I would be shocked when he would want to go out on a second date. And second date involved more alcohol and boom, all of a sudden I'm somehow entangled with someone that I initially said, no, this doesn't seem right. This is, no, I don't think so. And I would just become enmeshed with some of these guys because I thought that being with somebody would make me better.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I had
and so I was
in. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. Care to share?
Well, just when you're already in it, like all of a sudden, because you've been drinking on date one, I came to the conclusion that I don't think it was the true me or the true guy, right? We were different personalities when we're drinking, and yeah, we're not listening to our intuition. And all of a sudden you're 3 months in going, this is not someone I even like, or yeah, what am I doing?
Yes.
Yeah. So that can be some of the benefits, I guess, of sober dating, although sober dating seems very intimidating. First, alcohol free. And I mean, what do you think the challenges are, and how do you help your clients overcome those challenges when they first try sober dating?
I think sober dating is fantastic. And there is definitely that intimidation factor, though, if you've grown up and lived for such a long time, getting to know romantic partners or potential romantic partners over a glass or 10 of something alcoholic. And so without that crutch, it can be difficult to even know how to do life, right? So just putting dating aside, I'll speak for myself. I had been drinking for such a long time and so frequently, so heavily, that I couldn't imagine living without alcohol. I knew things were going downhill and getting even uglier and uglier the longer I went, progressively getting worse. And so I didn't want to pick up a drink again. At the same time, I remember speaking with a therapist within my first maybe month without drinking and asking her, well, how am I going to go out to eat with friends? How am I going to travel? How will I go to concerts? How am I going to go on a date? How will I kiss someone? And from there, right? How will I do these things? Because I was always drunk, or I was always having a drink or on my way to drinking. And so for me and for the clients that I work with who have a very lengthy and heavy drinking history, I don't suggest just diving into dating on day 3 or even day 90. Really reconnecting with, or for the first time, connecting with yourself and what it feels like, what it looks like to live without alcohol. Because whether you're dating drinking or dating sober, dating ramps things up. There's that excitement, there's that nervousness. And so feeling grounded, and especially if you really want to stay alcohol free, and I'm assuming the listeners do, since we are sober and lit on here, having that firm foundation, living alcohol free, to me is imperative before you start adding booze into the mix. And so other aspects of life, right? I mean, it's just, yes. So I'll pause there.
Yeah. Yeah. So going out to the mix, or adding other people, the people that you're dating might drink, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those can be challenges. I know when I first, and the listeners know, I had my first rodeo. I went to AA for a while, and their suggestions were definitely don't do anything for a year. Like, don't change your job, don't date, don't, take the time to just get to know yourself. And then I left AA and kept drinking, and then found, myself in a different program, and I'm married, and I was married even then. So dating has not been something that I had to worry about. But Ruby, what was your philosophy when you first got alcohol free about dating?
Yeah.
Did you feel like you should wait, or?
Well, I agree with that. I don't know if you need a whole year, but taking that time, just like Lily said, to get to connect with yourself, find yourself, get grounded, whether that's a year or a certain amount of time, because there's so many people that I've heard, so many clients and people that I know that just jumped into a relationship in, maybe the first 3 to 6 months of their alcohol-free journey. And then if they didn't quite become empowered in themselves or start to find that self-love, they just become who they were. You revert back, or you just become who you were and start to just become. I always would become like, what is that? If you're a dog person, you're like your dog. Well, I would be like my boyfriend. My boyfriend liked to go to baseball games. I like to go to baseball games. If he liked to do this, I like to do that. Then I would date another guy and they like to do something totally different. Oh, I'm going to take up golf now. Or I would morph into whatever I thought they wanted, So it's great to know who you truly are, what you truly like, what you want out of life, who you want to be with, and then start dating. And another part of your question, I think you were asking, Susan, I only will date someone who's alcohol free. I've decided I don't want to even deal with that BS bullshit, right? Of drinking. So I know it limits the pool, but I don't care. I want to be with someone that's working on themselves and alcohol free and true to who they are. Yeah.
True to who they are. Yes. And Ruby, to your point, one of the challenges that I thought of was the idea, the misperception that, well, once I put the booze down, then everything's perfect. I'm great, right? No. For me, the alcohol was, my social lubricant, I felt prettier, better, smarter, better dancer, definitely way more likely to take my shirt off and go home with somebody that I'd never met before. And that all came from a place of not really knowing myself, as we've said. And I see the temptation in a lot of people is to try to find a substitute that they can fixate on. And that can come in the form of a boyfriend or partner. And then life revolves around that person instead of the alcohol, as Ruby was describing. And especially when both parties are in, working on being alcohol free or in early sobriety, especially, that's just a time bomb most of the time. Yeah. And so I don't think that there's a magic amount of time. As Ruby said, I did go the first year without dating. And even on day 366, it wasn't like I was this totally changed, healthy person ready to meet the love of my life. No. And that's not how it went. But I am glad I took that time, because it did give me, it gave me a lot of experience without alcohol, without the added pressure or obsession over, is he going to call? Is he going to text me? What are we going to do? What did he mean by that? Because that's how my brain can still go sometimes. It's funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're still human.
Aren't we?
We're so human once we're sober, right? We're like uber human.
We feel so much better. We feel everything. It's like a raw nerve in the beginning.
Yeah, that emotional roller coaster is real.
Yeah. So what do you suggest to clients, like when they do start dating, if they're sober dating? Is it, maybe plan dates around like a hike or an exercise class or something that doesn't revolve around alcohol traditionally? Or, are there any suggestions you can offer to someone a listener who may be like, I've done some of the emotional sobriety work, I'm ready to start to look at sober dating? What are some tips or suggestions you might have?
Well, one suggestion is to, know yourself and hopefully do some looking back into your past, but also to get clear on what am I looking for? What kind of relationship am I looking for? And to work on your communication with all people in your life, what am I looking for? And what do I think I would be okay with? And so I've worked with women who started out accepting dates with men who said that they did drink, but a little bit, or they were Cali sober, they didn't drink, but they might do some other things. And because this was it was a first time experience for the client, she thought, okay, well, he's cute, right? And we have these other things in common, so maybe that's okay. And came to find out, no. So always learning. And then setting up the dates. I personally have no business going into a bar to meet a stranger and, to sit there while there's lots of alcohol around me, because even though I'm very comfortable being around alcohol, that's just not a welcoming environment. And so I think parks, walks, hikes, activities, one of the best first dates I ever went on, and this was even pre-sobriety, he didn't drink, as it turned out, but we went to this natural science museum, and it had these great exhibits, and it was very kid friendly. And so, our big kids got to push the buttons and the dinosaur would talk or whatever it was. And so it gave us that there was interaction without having to sit across the table and just stare at each other and sip coffee. And so that was a lot of fun to do. So get out and do something, have some fun. Because hopefully you can date your husband, right? It's not like y'all just carried on exactly how everything was, I'm guessing, after Susan stopped drinking.
No. We did have to find a lot of other ways to connect. And we do connect on hikes and walks and many, different activities that are so fun that we never would have done if we'd stayed going to the local brewery or the local, bar, right? That was all we did, or stayed at home and drink and watch Netflix. Now we do so many more interesting things. So those are such great suggestions. You're
living life. Putt golf.
Oh yeah, I've done
played
that.
golf.
Or bowling. Or I tend to
Bowling, roller skating. I don't know. Come to my yoga class. No, that's a terrible idea for a first date for me. Everyone's nervous in their first class.
True.
I tend to do coffee first just because I feel like I just know like there's that spark there, the chemistry, and it's simple. You can do it in the morning. I can say you can leave but then the second, what I do, then the second date can be the hike or the museum or something a little more, I don't know. That's what I do. I'm no expert, but that's, I kind of want to get that out of the way. Like just the initial, do we have chemistry?
Mm-hmm. Coffee clearance. Yeah.
Yeah. The coffee clearance. I like that.
Absolutely. So that for me, my initial thought was the coffee, because I know some women who will say, well, but I'd rather go do something because even if it's a coffee date, I'm going to end up being there for at least an hour and, they can make it this big elaborate thing. And so there's that boundary or that, how do you say, this is how I'm going to have it. We're going to meet. We're going to have 1 cup of coffee. I don't know, Ruby, what your clearance levels really involve. If we have 2 cups of coffee, does that mean we're going to dinner instead of lunch for our second date? But,
I guess
they can make a deal of it. Mm-hmm.
I like to always kind of have an out if I need to within a half an hour.
Yes.
If it's really bad.
Yes.
But then if it's going really well, I've sat for 2 hours having coffee. Yeah. So it's yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. That's great. Well, so let's transition from, let's say the coffee goes very well. It's a 2-hour Ruby coffee time. And then it goes to the museum and then it goes to dinner. And then you want to go further. And now we're talking about sober sex.
No, I just met y'all face to face about 30 minutes ago. So I think we need to pump the brakes a little bit here, Susan.
We want all your expertise. We want to know what are some of the misconceptions people have about sober sex and intimacy, and how would you debunk them?
Oh, I think the biggest misconception about sober sex is that it's really awkward and weird and, oh my gosh, it's like instead of the blurred filter on the, movie screen or the camera, it's going to be just very raw and real. And it is real. At the same time, I don't know about y'all, but I and plenty of people I know have had really awkward drinking or drunk sex. Things don't work. You don't remember the person's name. Things are just, it's awkward.
Yeah.
It's awkward and it's not romantic. And one of the big differences that I've seen is if you are dating sober and you know yourself, you're getting to know your partner, you've probably gone a little more slowly than you used to, and you know each other better and hopefully have had some conversations that may have gotten glossed over, with when you were a couple bottles in and just thinking, oh, okay, this is a good idea. And you end up in a relationship with somebody you don't really know or like that well. We already covered that part. And so to me, what I hear and what I see is that the level of intimacy, putting aside the physical act of sex, the level of intimacy going into that sort of physical relationship can be so much higher. And so everything can be so much better, because my experience working with women and just in general, everything I've listened to, read, learned, is that we're really seeking love and connection. And if you're one of the few who says, no, I just want to have casual sex and bounce around and, then that's great. You do you. if you know that's what you want to do. But if you're looking for something deeper, which the people I work with definitely are, they want that true connection. And my experience is we can really truly have that if we've been working at it and we've been honest and communicating. And man, then you get the icing on the cake and the cherry on top and all the goodies when you take that extra step. I think it's great. Sober sex is amazing.
Yeah. Well, what I hear you saying is there's better communication. You know yourself better. You know what you want. And with that communication, it's just more intimate. Because, I mean, drug sex is like wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Sometimes you don't even remember you did it.
Maybe not even a thank you. It's just like roll over and pass out.
Yeah. So what were you going to say, Ruby?
Well, I was going to say that, alcohol deadens our senses, right? And it, we're not feeling as much. We think we might be, but when you're sober, I mean, joy, happiness, but also all the senses really ignite. And, I was thinking the same thing of like alcohol is like creating the distance or the disconnection from the other, but then also within yourself, right? So when you get alcohol free, you're feeling like all your little senses and feelies are out there, and well, it's just better. I'll just say better. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I will say though, talking about sober sex, I've also worked with people who were in the habit of, when drinking, getting involved with somebody really quickly, jumping into bed with somebody really quickly. And so there was this, and I can categorize myself as one of these types, I guess. But I guess I know where sex wasn't really meaningful. And it felt almost like something I should do, or some sort of expectation at date number, whatever it is. Or he thinks we're going there, or I said something earlier that sounded like we were going to go there. And so that can transfer over, because that old thinking, that old pattern isn't tied directly to alcohol. And so that's that underlying thought of, well, in order to keep somebody interested, I need to do this, or just this is transactional. And so that kind of mindset can follow us into our sober dating choices and sober sex choices. And, having sex with somebody bonds us. We attach to them at least a little bit, even if we don't really like them. I mean, hence the people that I stayed with where I didn't like them, but we were drunk and it happened. And so, sorry, Mom, my mom's going to be listening to this. It's okay. I think she knows I'm not pure as the driven snow, and cat's out of the bag, but I've seen that happen. And so that's that, learning kind of the painful way. And man, I could have waited. I could have gotten to know that person and it would have been different. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But I think the longer that there is that emotional intimacy, it just compounds once you add the physical element into it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, that's an important aspect is, and it sounds like when you're sober, you have a lot more discernment. So we go on the date and they don't pass the initial coffee, you're not as likely to fall into bed, quote unquote, with them. And so, you make sure that there is that spark that Ruby talked about, which also really helps in that department.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And there's no covering up whether you're really attracted to somebody or not. I mean, if you don't like kissing him, you probably aren't going to proceed much further. Right. And I'm saying guy because that's where I go. But anyone you're attracted to, I kept dating this guy and I didn't enjoy kissing him back when I was drinking. Finally, my friend was like, Lily, what are you doing? Wouldn't do that today for sure. It was like, nope, That's not working. Bye.
Well, so do you ever work with couples who are already married and then they're sober and introducing sober sex where the relationship had, or they're already dating someone and they're introducing sober sex in where, it used to be usually alcohol enhanced, shall we say? Loosened up.
Alcohol drenched.
Yes.
Yes, I have. And I've not done any duo sessions, but I have worked with women who were married or seriously involved with somebody when they got sober. And it's fascinating to see how those relationships can change and what happens. Both of them, the two specifically that I'm going to think about right now, got a third. Okay. Both of them got sober because the partner primarily was saying, this is a problem, right? And so the relationship was on the rocks. There was that pressure from the other one to stop it. You're causing all kinds of problems in the relationship. And then they do. And what's going to happen next? And so working on the emotional sobriety, changing the behaviors, learning to communicate better, those relationships can improve. And I think of it as starting to date your partner again, because if you have been having drunken sex with somebody your entire relationship or most of it, it's nerve-wracking. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because that's how I used to show up, or I used to do this thing or fake this thing, or, and now I'm more authentic and genuine. And sorry, honey, that thing you do that you thought I just love is really, can we talk about that? But the relationships can improve so dramatically and things can get so wonderful and just totally change course. I've also had the experience of working with and knowing a couple of people who got sober, and then the partner all of a sudden wasn't too happy about that. And so sometimes as we get better, we realize that those around us, not limited to romantic partnerships, they have some unhealthy features or characteristics or habits as well. Whereas I've been thinking I'm the worst of the worst and I really need to get my stuff together and fix this and be a good person, and you're going to stay with me if I get sober, and I'm going to do this for you or the family. Hopefully I do it for me. And then to realize, wow, this is not healthy. I'm feeling healthier. I'm seeing more clearly. I'm feeling more clearly. And this is not okay. And so I've also seen people separate, divorce after getting sober because the other party, they hadn't realized how unhealthy the relationship really was. And it couldn't be healed through counseling. And I think therapy, coaching is always a good idea. Call in an expert. Or the relationship was based on drinking and one party stops drinking and the other one keeps drinking, maybe not to a real extreme, but they miss their drinking buddy, or the dynamics shift so that they want to go off and drink over here. Whereas the person who's now alcohol free is like, well, can we go to putt-putt instead?
Yeah. Can we go play miniature?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's have some us time.
Yeah, we see that a lot.
Yes,
definitely. All of those you described.
All of the above. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. But it comes back to communication, emotional sobriety, or just, working on yourself. And whether if you start working on yourself, whether your partner has a drinking problem or not, are they going to work on themselves as well and work on the relationship? Because any partner changing something in the relationship does upset the apple cart, so to speak. And then I love your analogy of dating your husband again, learning how to have a relationship with your spouse that doesn't include alcohol. I think, and that can be exciting, like an adventure to go, okay, let's, we're going to try all these new things and see what works. And yeah. And honestly, you're right. There's been drunken sex that's awkward, but I would also say that there is awkward sober sex.
Sure.
What's fun? I mean, when you've been married a really long time and you're both like sitting there going, my husband will die, but when we first did it, my husband was like, I'm nervous. And I'm like, well, all of a sudden we were like 18 years old or like kids again, like laughing at each other. But in some ways, wasn't that fun? It was like we were encountering each other again as like two humans, like with nothing in between us, and it was fine. It was funny though. We just laughed because we're really good friends and we just cracked up and laughed. And that was beautiful in a way. That was
beautiful. I love that.
I love
There's
that
such more to sex than the act. It's intimacy. Laughing together is intimate. Talking about snuggling, talking about what you like or your dreams to me is intimate. And and so all of those, going putt-putt golfing together is intimate in some ways. Dating each other again can be intimate. I think going for walks, even my husband and I walk a lot together. That's like where we chit chat, is intimate. There's so much more to intimacy than just the sexual act, but
absolutely. The breakdown of the word intimacy into me, see, when I'm really vulnerable with someone I love, whether it's romantic or another type of relationship, that's where we connect. And getting to know one another, you can do that anytime as long as we're able to be really, really honest and genuine and come from that place of love. Because I think that, we can talk about anything in the world, even the most challenging conversations, if they're coming from a place of love and kindness, it goes so much better than the drunken, ultimatum or why aren't you? Rah, 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 rah. And that can happen sober too. But I love that. I love the, you and your husband feeling like you're 18 and saying I'm nervous is great. Being honest. Yeah. Or like the story I'm telling myself is, that's a good one. I like that. That's set up for something,
Yeah. We use that a lot in our coaching. Mm-hmm. What is the story you're telling yourself here? Yeah. Yeah. No, so good. So good. I love that. What is it again? Intimacy, into me, see.
Yes.
I love that. Into me, see.
I'm letting you see into me.
Into me. And I'm seeing into you. That's beautiful. Mm-hmm. That is wonderful. Well, what do you hope to see, for the future of alcohol-free dating, as far as maybe social norms changing regarding it? There are a lot more people. There's a whole sobriety movement out there. Gen Z doesn't drink as much. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe it'll just be natural to not have alcohol be always part of dating, always part of sex. What do you hope to see in that area?
I am very hopeful that the trend we're seeing, less drinking, just in general and in dating and relationships, continues. And I sense this deep desire within so many people, including myself, but for authentic connection and getting to know one another and supporting one another. And when there's not the alcoholic filter over everyone, we can make those connections. I also hope that dating can somehow morph more into real life than on screen, because the screens really don't connect us and, our illusions. And so I'm hopeful that this next generation, especially, will get out and meet one another and find ways to connect in person over things that they love, like putt-putt. Or
that's great.
Yeah, that's what I'm coming back to.
Yeah, I agree.
And because there's nothing quite like being with somebody in person. Zoom was great during COVID for those of us who wanted alcohol-free companionship and support. But when you get together with people, with that shared purpose and mission, and all of these alcohol-free groups that have formed over the years, that's just beautiful, because when we're supporting one another, there's nothing we can't do.
Absolutely. Well, this is the time in our podcast where we ask our guests, what do they do in their life to feel lit, alcohol free? So what do you do? I mean, I know you do yoga, which sounds amazing, but what do you do in your life that helps you feel lit?
I don't do it for the intent of feeling lit, Susan, but I think the most lit I feel in my alcohol-free life is being able to look into the eyes of the people that I love unconditionally and to tell them, I love you.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Nothing like it.
Yeah, nothing like it.
We haven't had that answer yet.
We have not.
And I love it.
That.
I know. That's
so much.
And what about looking at yourself in the eye and saying, I love you? Like, that's something that really lights me up, that I'm able to finally not look at my own eyes with like that regret or shame.
Self-love is such an ongoing journey. It's only because of sobriety and the people in my life. I have to say, I've learned a lot about loving myself and others from the other people in my life.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here by myself.
I don't think any of us would be. Yeah.
I don't think so either.
Our connection and our tribe and our community is so important. Well, thank you so much for being here with us. I so appreciate you sharing, especially around this super can be sensitive topic, but I think we just discussed it in such a real open way and accessible way. And I think that our listeners are going to love it.
Yeah. I love it. And I've told several people to go buy vibrators and do other things. So, if you want to have that conversation, find me online. Okay. The next time I talk with Susan and Libby.
Such a pleasure to meet
you. In the show notes, and everyone can flock to you to get even more tips. But thank you again, and thank you to our listeners, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Sober and Lit podcast.
If you enjoyed this episode, we would love it if you would subscribe, rate, and review. It really helps get the word out.
And remember, do something today to help you feel lit.
See you next week.